Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hi, my name is Matthew. I'm your host today, and this is the SDA Housing Podcast, a show that explains, highlights, guides, and brings awareness to all things specialist disability accommodation in this ever-changing NDIS world. I'm here with Grace today from our company. How are you doing, Grace?
I'm doing good. Thanks, Matt.
Excellent. No worries. So today we're kind of talking about resales. We've kind of in the NDIS, in SDA, we've seen a lot of previous buyers of SDA properties looking to essentially move on their property or sell their property for whatever reasons. And we're kind of just exploring that in this podcast to discuss the challenges, the information that would be required for a resale, how we'd essentially conduct a resale, what would be required on the part of the owner of the property, or the process would be, etc. So, Grace, what would be the reasons for a resale?
The main reason for resale, unfortunately, is vacancy. Or sometimes after a long period of time, there's only one participant and the income does not justify the cost of what the investor has paid for, and he's burning a hole in his pocket. So those are the two main reasons. Occasionally we get people who want to sell because they've got, better opportunities, or they would have made a fairly good profit especially when they're in the, be one of the first to buy, where the houses were in the 600s or 700s. And now with a good running income, with two participants paying, 100,000+ a year, they can see that there's a good way to capitalize on that and maybe, get something like $500,000 in profit, and they just want to take it and go.
Excellent. No worries. So essentially there's two kind of markets, I suppose. There's people who can't find participants for their property and it hasn't been, what they wanted to see. And then the other market would be people who are moving on a property that they bought, they tenanted, and they're selling it for a profit, I suppose.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes. And the thing is, the vacancy is quite a sad thing, because quite often when I talk to the investors, they themselves realize that they do have to have a period of time where they can, hold that property, because getting tenancies are quite slow. I mean, they could take 3 months to 6 months, and a lot of them have had that contingency in the way they plan the SDA. However, with the interest rates going up as they have been going up, a lot of them found themselves to be falling short and quite far behind. I mean, I was talking to somebody before. He said, look, my interest rate has gone up by $2,000. He said, I can no longer keep it. I have to sell it. But at the same time, my house is empty because I don't have participants. So what can I do? There's no real answer to that, because it's one with the other. If you got participants, it's going to be a lot easier to sell. But if you don't, it's going to be really difficult.
But I suppose if you did have participants, you might not be in a position where you would need to sell. So
exactly, he might not need to sell if he had participants. So I feel quite sorry, because there's nothing much we can do. We can only help.
Yep.
And I think one of the things that we try to assist is by putting on, them to other SDA providers, or ask them to come and contact Maddie in our office, who does tenancy searches for investors as well. So those are the only two things that we can help them with.
Yeah. So I suppose that leads into kind of my next question, which is, what are the challenges around doing a potential resale of an SDA property?
Well, quite often people don't really want to buy an empty house. It's just as simple as that, because they understand the risk. They turn on their radio and TV, and it's sort of all the reports that they're hearing sort of does create a bit of fear. And an empty house is like a red flag saying, there's nobody out there. Why should we be paying you for your house? However, there is a small group of investors who understands how SDA works. What they do is they would buy, but at a very rock bottom price.
Yeah.
Right? So they don't mind taking the punt, but it has to be really, really cheap. That is the trade-off.
Yeah, and I find we've found over the time that we've been doing this that there's a lot of investors that will come or owners of properties that will want to sell their property at a profit because they've spent a lot of time with it and they feel like they need to justify that by selling it at an increased price when, just based on what you just said, then probably they can't. Realistically, they probably won't be able to sell it at that price.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, that's right. And I have to tell them that and say, look, your house is empty. Even the price that you have paid, say even in 800,000, for example, is not an over-the-top price. But at the same time, for somebody who's buying a vacant house, they're taking the risks because they could be sitting there for another 6 months. So therefore, they want to be compensated for that risk.
Correct.
And therefore, the only way that they'll buy it, if you would give them a price, equivalent to the 6 months of loss of income or even more.
Yes. Yep.
So that's how it works.
Yeah. So I suppose if I was approaching you to sell an NDIS property, what should I be aware of?
Well, there's a lot of things, basically, I guess.
We've kind of touched on a few of them, but yeah.
Well, it's not quick.
Yep.
It's not a quick sale. Buyers are getting smarter, I guess, to say the least. They will investigate the location. So they will check out to see whether that location is an area where there is a lot of vacancies, whether there is a low demand, and they would price it according to how they feel, what it would take, and also the median price range. So investors are getting smarter in the sense that they do a lot more research.
Yes.
So
they have more information available.
And yeah, there's a lot more information available. So for them to pay you the price, even though you have a fully tenanted house, they would still look at it and compare all these factors and just go, well, Grace, I'm sorry, median price in this area is only 700 and you're wanting to sell me 1.3. How do I justify that price? Even though your income justifies the price, but the property doesn't justify the price.
Okay.
So does that make sense? Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So I suppose in terms of timeframes, when is a resale appropriate? I guess in terms of, should someone wait if they can't find any tenants within 6 months or a year, or when would that, or would it just be based on their own situation?
Well, it is based on their own situation. What we do say to them is, if you want to list the property with us, we're happy to help you out. Anything that is especially vacant will take a long time. If you want a quick fix, don't come to us because we can't do that. If you want to list it with a couple of agents, we won't stop you because we understand that you have got, financial strains on yourself. But just bear in mind that, the best thing to do is not to sign with agents. I know a lot of agents out there want you to sign an exclusive for 3 months. My advice to you is don't sign exclusive for 3 months as when you have a vacant house, because what will happen is they will try and after a while they'll just give up. And then you are stuck for 3 months with no hope because no other agent will touch you.
Yep.
And then you're stuck.
Yep.
And the other thing is while you are trying to sell, try to rent it out. Yep. So don't stop the process. Just keep going. And, you might get lucky and get one or the other. And even if you have one tenant, that will still assist you in your repayments.
Yep. Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose, what's the process of a resale? What information is required, or how, if I was selling a property now, how would I go about that with you? What would you be looking to find out about my property? How would that occur?
Well, basically, if you decide that you want to list with me, I'll give you a list of things that I need from you. And a lot of it is really about income.
Yep.
About the property itself. We would need floor plans or, and all the documentation to prove that your house has been enrolled and all that stuff. So it is a list of things that I will send. The more information you give me, the better it is. And obviously, with any sale, I'll just say income. If you got nothing, that's fine. But, if you do have something, you have to make sure that we talk about it and tell any buyers, because a lot of the way that we price properties is basically based on your income.
Okay. That's good advice. Yeah. So is there anything we can, like if I was someone who was interested in selling, anything I can do to kind of make the property more appealing in that sales process, or something you kind of touched on, if there's an income there that justifies a higher property price? Could you kind of elaborate on that a bit more, or, what we can do to make a property more appealing for a resale?
If you are really desperate to sell, I suppose one of the best things to do is to maybe offer 6 months rental guarantee, because that way the person that's buying your property would feel that, at least they can last the 6 months. But at the same time, don't forget, if vacant property, price drop. So you have to work it out, because if you're not going to drop your price, it's never going to sell. That's the main thing. So I always encourage everybody, continue to find participants. Even if you got one, it's better than none.
Okay, excellent. And I suppose, you've touched on a lot of different points today, things to be aware of. Do you have any other general advice for selling NDIS properties?
Be realistic.
Be realistic, yep.
I know everybody wants as much as they can, but, overpriced properties will sit around for a very long time. As vacant properties, yep. That's right. Always get the right advice and buy in a better location, so the resales will be easier. And another thing that we find why a lot of houses are vacant is because investors have been sold houses in terrible locations, not close to shops, not close to transport, not close to hospital, not close to anything. So put yourself in that position and go, would I live here? Think about somebody who has a disability, who may never be able to drive. So they need easy access to everything. And if you can't get a good location, or making sure that the area that you're looking to buy has got a good demand for participants, run away. Do not buy it. Do not allow somebody to tell you that you're going to get, 20% return, because that's a dream. We have never seen it, and we know that does not exist. And quite often, a lot of them beef it up by telling you can put 3 or 4 people in the house, even though the house is not large enough to take more than 2. So look carefully, do a lot of research, and do not allow people to just tell you what they want. Check it out for yourself. Confirm that it's true before you just jump into it.
Excellent. Awesome. Excellent. I think this has been a really good podcast, just exploring the resale process. Thanks so much, Grace, for sharing the insights with us.
Most welcome, Matt.
No worries. Thanks, guys. We will join you on the next episode. Thank you very much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.